Fatiha. Selamun أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد سيدنا الأولين والآخرين مدد يا رسول الله الذي أسعدك أصحابه مدد يا مشايخنا دستور مولانا إن شاء الله فرزنا إن شاء الله محمد الرحمن الطارقة تاركتنا الصحبة والخير في الجمعية بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولله على الناس حج البيت ما استطاع إليه سبيلا صدق الله العظيم. Allah Azze ve Celle'nin emirlerini yapmak için herkes istediği gibi yapabilir.
Everyone is obliged to fulfill the commands of Allah Almighty, and everyone is obliged to fulfill these commands according to their capabilities and possibilities.
Yani Allah'ın emri nedir?
What are the commands of Allah Almighty?
Namazdır.
It is to perform prayer 5 times a day.
Hacdır.
It's to perform Hajj.
Zekattır.
It's to give Sadaqah.
Hepsini yani vacip, farz olan şeyleri yapması yapabildiği kadar.
And as Muslims, we are obliged to fulfill these obligations which are mandatory, and we are obliged to fulfill these obligations according to our capabilities and possibilities.
Ama bazen hac için sıhhat ister.
In order to perform Hajj, one needs to be in a healthy state.
Para ister.
One needs to have the means, to have the money to go on Hajj.
Zekat için de aynı şekilde.
The same applies to zakah. In order to give zakah, one needs to have money.
O da öyledir ama oruçta sıhhati olan
And in order to fulfill the requirement of fasting during Ramadan, one needs to be in good health too.
tutabilir, olmayan onun yerine para ödeyebilir.
Those who are not healthy, they may give money in excuse for the fasting they miss.
Namaz, ondan kaçınma yok.
When it comes to prayer, when it comes to praying 5 times a day, there is no excuse.
Onu kılmak farzdır.
It is an obligation which cannot be avoided, and it's mandatory to perform one's prayers.
Kılmamak günah olur.
And if you do not pray, if you miss a prayer, it is a sin.
Günaha girmiş olur. Onu kaza etmezse.
And if you miss a prayer, you commit a sin, and you must make up for that missed prayer.
Ahirete kalmış olur. Ahirette daha fazla.
And if you do not make up that prayer, you will be held accountable in the hereafter, and it will be difficult. You will be making up for that missed prayer with a lot of difficulties in the hereafter.
Zorlukla kılar. Ama dünyada dediğimiz gibi sen bunu yapacaksın, yapmayacaksın diye yapılabilecek şeyleri yapması lazım insan.
There are certain things which one can do, and there are certain things which may be difficult for one to perform, but we must be aware of our obligations, and we must fulfill these obligations to our possibilities and according to our capabilities.
Bazen yasak ediyorlar.
Sometimes it may be the case that one is being prevented from fulfilling an obligation because it is forbidden to do it.
Onu yasak edene günah olur.
And those who prevent you from fulfilling your obligation will be held accountable, and it will be a sin for them.
Onlar insan gene farz olan şeyleri elinden geldiği kadar yapması lazım.
Nevertheless, even if they prevent you from fulfilling your obligations, one must nevertheless try to fulfill one's mandatory obligations. Nevertheless,
Onu yapmazsa yapmak isteyip de mani olanlara günah vebal onlara olur.
And when you then want to fulfill your obligation and then you're still being prevented from fulfilling that obligation, then that person or who prevents you from fulfilling that obligation will be held accountable, and it will be their sin, and they will be asked for and questioned for that sin.
Yolu açmayanlara onu
Those who do not open up the way for a person to fulfill one's obligation towards Allah Almighty will be questioned and held accountable.
yapmayanlara vebalı onlaradır.
And those who prevent others from fulfilling their obligations carry the responsibility, and it will be their sin in their account for having prevented others from fulfilling their obligations.
Ama namaz dediğimiz gibi yatar bile olsa gözüyle ima ederek namaz kılmak farzdır.
Again, there should be no excuse for missing a prayer. Even if you cannot stand and you can only lie down, then while lying down you can still perform and fulfill your prayer by just making signs with your eyes.
Öteki yani onu kimse mani olamaz.
No one can prevent you from fulfilling your duty of praying 5 times a day.
Kimse durduramaz.
And nobody can stop you from performing your prayers.
Kılamadın gündüz gene gece kılar.
And even if you miss a prayer, if you miss to pray during daytime, you can still pray and make up for that missed prayer nighttime.
Hastasın. Hasta olduğun halde teyemmüm edip namazı kılarsın.
If you are sick and you cannot make your ablution, you can still make tayammum and still perform the prayer.
Çünkü o olduğun yerde ama hac meselesi o daha imkanı olmaz. Yani yollar kapalıysa onun için Allah Azze ve Celle
This, however, does not apply to other obligations such as performing Hajj, when it is simply not possible to perform Hajj because the ways have been closed down and it is not possible at all. Then you are released from that obligation and you cannot perform that obligation.
men istata ile sebila, yani ona ulaşabilen insan için farzdır.
To perform Hajj is an obligation for those who are able to do so and who have the means and whose ways are open to perform Hajj.
Allah şimdi bu zamanın hali, ahvali Müslümanlar için hac her zaman meşakkatli zordur.
To perform Hajj is an obligation which has always been difficult for the Muslims, and it's still difficult in today's times.
Bu zamanın zorluğu da yani onun müsaade edilmemesi.
And the difficulty in today's times for performing Hajj arises from the fact that there are certain quotas and criteria applied, and the number of people allowed to perform Hajj is limited.
Ve az bir miktar insan gitmesi.
Only a limited amount of people based on a quota is allowed to perform Hajj.
O da bir şeydir, manidir.
And this is a difficulty which prevents people from performing Hajj.
O şer'i manidir. Onu yapamayan vebalı, kendisi değil, yaptırmayan da.
And this is an external condition which prevents people from performing Hajj. And those who, based on that condition, cannot perform Hajj must know that it's not them who will be then held accountable for not performing Hajj, but it is those who set those rules, and it is those who made those quotas who will be held accountable for those people who were unable to perform Hajj because of these conditions.
Oluyor. Bu inşallah bu bir ay kaldı hacca. Şimdiden
Now it's 1 month remaining until Hajj.
başlayacak galiba hacılar gitmeye.
And now those who want to perform pilgrimage, the Hajjis will be starting their journey.
Hacca gidebilenler için Allah mübarek eylesin.
May those be blessed who are allowed to perform Hajj.
bu güzel ibadeti de yapmaya nasip etsin. Hepiniz yapmayanlar da inşallah.
And those who have not performed Hajj yet, may Allah Almighty enable them to perform their Hajj.
Çünkü hac sırf yani oraya gidip de tavaf etmek değil, bütün yapılan günahlardan affolmanın vesilesidir.
The virtues and the blessings of Hajj are not only about making tawaf and going there, it's also being redeemed from one's sins and to be forgiven for one's sins.
O hacı yapan insan, diyor Peygamber Efendimiz sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem, hak hukuk bırakmayan, etrafındaki giderken de o da var.
And our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stated that when performing Hajj, it is important that before embarking on that journey, one should ask for forgiveness, and one should seek the forgiveness of those people whose rights one may have violated.
Helallik istemek lazım ki.
So if you did injustice, did something wrong to somebody, you should ask that person for forgiveness.
Birine zulmettin, birinden bir şey alıp veremedin. Onları da helallik isteyip, onları da yapıp da gelen için.
If you oppressed someone, or if you made a debt and did not pay back, you should ask those people whose rights you have violated for forgiveness before embarking on that journey of Hajj.
Tertemiz anasından doğmuş gibi günahsız olarak gelir.
And when you then have asked people for forgiveness and then perform your Hajj, then when you will return from Hajj, you will be in a clean state, purified as if you were newborn.
Allah muvaffak eylesin.
May Allah Almighty enable us and make us be successful in fulfilling this duty in this beautiful way.
Gidemeyenler de yol açsın inşallah.
And may Allah Almighty open up the ways for all those who have not yet performed their Hajj.
Onlar da nasip etsin hac olmak için.
And may Allah Almighty grant the permission to perform Hajj to those who have not yet performed their Hajj.
ومن الله التوفيق. الفاتحة.